and they tap into the global movement against racism.
Right.
And with her, who is not a racist, and she was in tears because as far as she's concerned, the children cannot understand her. But then the children were in tears as well. They said, well, you cannot understand lead the bandwagon.
Okay.
But to do that, we need education. And I'm pleased that my brother and friend mentioned education. But what type of education? We need to end the racist curriculum. As an academic in the United Kingdom, I was governor of schools. And I was surprised that in the curricula for primary and secondary school, there was nothing about colonialism except the glorification of the empire. Well, if you bring children who only see the British Empire as some glorified edifice, etc.,
right,
and not the brutality of it, then you are creating a problem. So it's really about ending the racist curriculum to make sure that you give the proper education to young people.
Right.
That is the future.
Okay, we are running out of time, and not only do you have the applause, but also, I mean, we're living in an age where the statues are coming down, right? I mean, people didn't even know that in London when they were walking past a particular statue, that guy was a slave trader and so on, right? So there's a movement, there are things happening right now, and there's different arguments about how to proceed, but people are tearing down the statues physically and otherwise, right? I want to invite comment from the floor, but I want to first from the floor get comment from Mendy Chitrik, a rabbi, chairman of the Alliance of Rabbis in Islamic States. Rabbi Mendy Chitrik, you've got the microphone. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Imran. Thank you for asking me to speak. I want to get back to what Ambassador Mehmet Bachaji said in the beginning, and he spoke about inclusive society or living inclusiveness. And I think if we want to speak about changing the attitude of people, changing the attitude of, or shaping the attitude of our young, as Minister Francis said, it starts with living example of minorities. We, as a minority here in Turkey or in all over the Muslim countries, we are living examples of how tolerance can happen. It is okay to speak about it in nice forums and conferences, but if there is support from governments by laws or other ways of living minorities, strengthening schools, strengthening synagogues, congregations, and for example, for me, Jewish life in Muslim countries, this already breaks away all or many stereotypes, conspiracy theories, because when you live with people and people get to know you and see you, it's definitely a first step. And I have two more comments if you...
Sure, very briefly if you don't mind. Yes.
Very briefly. As a rabbi and as a man of religion, I always speak about what I see for me is the absolute truth in my religion. And I'm sure it is the same for an imam speaking about the absolute truth of his religion. And any other religious personnel will speak about his absolute truth. And when we speak about anti-racism, we also should be aware and should be careful that people of religion should have the right to express their religion as their absolute truth while not contradicting other absolute truths for other people. And that is a very, very important point that I want to make. And one last, as both Minister Tangara and my good friend Mr. Ibrahim Zadeh mentioned, the Bible says that we come from Adam. We all come from one person. And our holy book, the Talmud, says, why didn't God create a community? Why did he create one person to begin with? And the Talmud says to tell us two things. First of all, that responsibility of one person could have on the rest of society, on the future, all starts from one person. And another point the Talmud says is to tell us that nobody can say that my father is greater than your father, because we all come from the same person. We all come from the same place. And this is the absolute truth. Thank you.
The core of everything, the I am better than you mentality, is the root of all of our problems. Okay, so I have a timer in front of me, which means that time is of the essence, so we're going to get just a couple of questions in, and I'm sorry it's going to be unfair as I pick people here. Let me start with the young woman over there, if we can get a microphone to her as quickly as possible. Thank you. You can address it to anyone on the panel. Please keep it brief.
Merhabalar, Türkçe konuşacağım.
Okay, she's speaking Turkish. Yes. Let us stick our headsets on. Please keep it as brief as possible because we're out of time. We have another session coming up.
Herkese merhaba. Benim adım Jana Zlatina, Ukraynalıyım.
We don't have a translator. I'm sorry, I can't do this because none of the, besides one, none of the panelists will be able to understand the question, which is a problem, and we don't have any translation at the moment. Can we do the translation live? Okay, please. Very briefly, please. Thank you.
Ama sizin de mikrofon ihtiyacınız var sanırım. Peki paylaşabilirim ben.
Yeah. Sure.
Tamam. Benim adım Jana Zlatina, Ukraynalıyım.
She's Ukrainian. Jana, yes. You're a translator?
Please go ahead.
Okay. Çok önemli konulardan bahsediyorsunuz. Bunun için teşekkür etmek istiyorum.
You're like making big points. She's like thanking you for that.
Rusya Ukrayna'ya saldırdı, sivilleri, çocukları, insani koridorları bombalıyor. Bunu da belirtmek tekrar istiyorum.
Russia is bombing Ukraine and killing children and innocent people.
Ukrayna'da 130'den daha fazla millet var. Irkçılık böyle bir ülke olmak imkansızdır.
Ukraine has over 130 races within the country. Can you say that?
Dedim ki böyle bir ülke ırkçılık yer alamıyor, imkansızdır.
So Ukrainian people are not racist because of the races within the country?
Ukrayna devleti etnik köken, ırk, din ne olursa olsun sivil nüfusu tahliye etmek için mümkün olan her şeyi yapıyor.
So, ne?
Ukrayna devleti.
Look, I don't want to.
Benim tamamen soru değil, ben yorum yapıyorum.
If you don't mind, please, we've asked you to keep it as brief as possible. We understand your point. Do you have a question for? Okay.
Evet. Siz yorum yapıyorum.
No, she's just making comments.
Understood.
She's not
Okay.
asking a question.
If you could keep it as brief as possible because we then don't have the
Ama
opportunity
lütfen çünkü
for other people to talk.
Yani önemli sözleri olduğu için Ukraynalı olarak ben tamamen belirtmem lazım. Bu yüzden yani tercüme ile yardım
I mean, she
ederim.
just says that it's big points, so.
Okay.
Peki o zaman sorum şöyle, Ukrayna'dan yabancılar için Ukrayna'dan tahliye yapıyorlar. Böyle yani resim bilgi de var. Gerek varsa ben gösterebilirim. Yani ben merak ediyorum nereden böyle bir bilgi oldu ki yabancılar bilet almışlar ama gidemiyorlar Ukrayna'dan. Çünkü savaş başladıktan sonra Ukrayna'da trenler için bilet satmıyorlar.
Tamam, Afrikalıları söylüyorsunuz değil mi?
Genel olarak Afrikalılar
Biraz
değil.
çabuk yapacaksınız çünkü we are running out of time.
We're actually out of time now, so
Okay.
please finish the point.
Yeah,
And
lütfen tamam. Okay, she wants to make the comment that there are remarks that Ukrainians are acting racist because of this crisis, that they're not taking people into the trains, but this does not reflect the truth, she says, because the train tickets were not being sold even after the assaults. So, teşekkür ediyoruz. Ama we can't give you the floor. Bütün şeyi siz konuşamazsınız. Müsaade edin.
Ma'am, thank you. And I understand that it came from maybe in response to something that David John Francis said about a very specific incident of Africans who were targeted in Ukraine.
She wasn't in Ukraine at that time, but this student I'm talking about was in Ukraine. So that's the difference.
Sure, and there is the general situation.
This is
and
not
the specific
hearsay. The student has returned back to Freetown.
Sorry.
It's a daughter of a senior officer.
How about we can get comment from everybody.
Actually, you can go to YouTube and enter this, and you will see how, I mean, the students, etc., that they were speaking of were not accepted even to countries on the western border of Ukraine, which is an unfortunate reality.
How about we do this? if well, we can see this timer in front of us, we're in the red, -2 minutes. How about we get final comment from each one of the panelists here, because I don't know how questions and comments, what they're going to birth here and for however many minutes. And that's a problem. So can we get brief 30-second final comments from everybody, from the very end with Mr. Pachaja all the way down here?
Perhaps lastly, I would like to stress on the, again, combating racism, discrimination, every kinds of hatreds. I mean, monitoring is important. Monitoring, recording and reporting. This is the direct, perhaps, action against racism and every kind of discrimination and xenophobia. This is an immediate act, actually, against this issue. In this respect, two important institutions, or two...
Please, very briefly, sir.
I'm finishing. Two important sides take roles. One is state authorities, the other one is social, NGOs, civil society organizations, and they have to work on that and monitor the cases and report and record, and
right.
this triggers the combating and
I don't mean to be rude, sir. I really
thank
have
you.
to. Please.
Okay.
Ishaq Ibrahimzadeh.
Today, I agree. I mean, the most important thing is to be honest, okay? And not to sacrifice people for our own benefit. And this is what's happened between, those people that are sacrificed are either the weak ones or the minorities for the greater good of something that I don't know. But at the end of the day, this is the situation in the world. And if we are all happy, it means that it was successful. But if we are all, I'm out to ask the final question, is there anybody here who is happy with what's going on?
Nobody is.
Okay, exactly.
Right.
If nobody is happy, it means that somebody has to invest on it. And I learned it from Rabbi Hitrik years ago. Education starts 20 years before a child is born.
Okay.
So we are already 20 years late.
I'm sorry, sir. 20 seconds from the last two, please. I'm sorry. I apologize, but...
No problem.
We have to hit
am
eject.
an eternal optimist, but I'm afraid I have to end on a pessimistic note. Racism is here to stay and is going to be with us for a very long time. For one simple reason, we do not have the courage and the leadership to end it. And we, as a people, always have the propensity to deny the facts as they are. Thank you.
Mamadou Tangara.
I want to stay optimistic and without any cynicism, saying that the coronavirus is one of the most democratic viruses. It has proven in its own way that the human family is one big family. What affects one directly affects all of us. So we have to stick together and to know that the beauty of this world will come from the variety and the diversity of the colors that it represents. Thank you.
Viruses don't discriminate, but people do, and sometimes vaccines do as well. I thank you very much, everybody, for joining us. I'm sorry that I couldn't get more of your comments in. Thank you.